Did you not see the wave of Democrats and liberals that have been specifically laughing and giggling for Charlie Kirk's death?
There are people on the left and the right that are mock and do calls to violence. Absolutely. But the reality is, whether you want to acknowledge this or not, is the Democratic leadership do not do that. But Trump's conservative leadership does. He mocks the assault of Paul Pelosi. He's not lowering the temperature, saying he doesn't care about civility. He's the reason why January 6th happened. He didn't care that people were chanting, "Kill Mike Pence," his own vice president, because he was so angry with Mike Pence for not helping him steal the country. And if you can't acknowledge this, all you're doing is proving you're the reason why Destiny always stays relevant. Because as much of an immoral he is, you can't come to grasp with the reality.
The President of the United States, without having any idea at all who the actual shooter is, has already blamed one side.
Because there was a bullet which said, "Catch this fascist." Which is the side that calls the other fascist?
These far-left fascists. We have a fascist person running. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
All right, guys, let's get this started. This is going to have, I think, a lot to do with Charlie Kirk. Obviously, Destiny is the main topic of conversation. This is from yesterday. It's been about a week since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And so I've had some time to digest everything. And I think I have, I think I can give I think this is a topic I feel comfortable talking about now. You know, when everything first happened, I was not comfortable, talking about it. I didn't want to jump on and be like, you know, it was a big event. It was shocking. It was startling. You know, I think part of it too is that it was a creator that was killed. And, you know, I'm a creator too, obviously not even close to the level of success, but part of it's like, oh man, that makes you feel uneasy. Obviously what happened was disgusting, but I think that maybe everybody or more people are in the mindset to have a productive conversation about this instead of just kind of either memeing on his death or championing him as some kind of bastion of freedom of speech, because both of those things are wrong. You know, he obviously mocking his assassination is disgusting. At the same time, Charlie Kirk was not a particularly good person. He didn't deserve to die at all. It's horrible what happened. But I see a lot of the rhetoric coming from people on the right, and they're talking about how he was a really good guy, and it's so hard because I've seen so many things, not even just after his death, but even before that, I've been, looking at Charlie Kirk stuff, and he said especially some disgusting things about black people, disparaging Martin Luther King, talking about how black people were doing really well in the 1940s, talking about how civil rights was a mistake. We could have a productive conversation about how affirmative action is maybe in today's time gone too far. You know, maybe now it's not needed. That's a conversation we could have, but it definitely needed to exist back when black people weren't even considered equal. And even his comments on making his daughter give birth if she was sexually assaulted or if she was raped. I think that's disgusting and abusive. I think that he's debate broing, and I don't think that he believes what he's saying there. But if you really genuinely would make your daughter birth and raise the rapist's baby, that's abuse. That's an abusive parent. There's really no other conversation to have about that. That's disgusting. That's abusive. That's psychological torture, you know, and that's taking too much charity for the rapist's perspective. In my opinion, it's just that's horrible. So I don't think he's a particularly good person. I think it's good that people pushed back and were against this whitewashing of his history. At the same time, I don't think mocking his death is productive. I understand that people on the right have been mocking violence for a while, like Nancy Pelosi's husband, for instance. And Charlie Kirk pushed the conspiracy that Nancy Pelosi's husband, the guy who beat him, near death with a hammer after breaking into his house, was actually his gay lover and all this other crazy conspiracy stuff. And Charlie Kirk, mocked his death, downplaying it, saying people should, get him out on bail, the assailant, and ask him some questions. So unfortunately, Charlie Kirk passed. He was assassinated. He was murdered horrifically in an environment that he helped foster, and it's terrible. It's terrible. It is. He doesn't deserve that. But I don't think that this whitewashing is acceptable. And that's how I feel at this point. As far as the conversation about political violence, again, can we have a productive conversation? It's hard to have productive conversations. I think it's very unproductive to focus on which side is more violent than the other. I would say nowadays conservatives are more violent than progressives. Frankly, we can look back at January 6th and a lot of the online rhetoric in general, a lot of mocking of people's lives. Oh yeah, Charlie Kirk was friends with Alex Jones too, who mocked the death of children murdered in Sandy Hook. But it's always like a cycle of violence, right? I mean, what was 2020? 2020 was there were a lot of riots. Most of them weren't riots, but there were still some violent riots where people died. And there was a lot more social persecution from the right into the from the left into the right. And it's one of those things where I feel like if we sat here for an hour, we could probably backtrack, like just the back and forth, the ebb and flow of what's been going on. I think that people on the right are frustrated with some more online batterings from people on the left and moral chastising, and that's why Trump got elected. But Trump certainly has escalated things. He was able to capitalize on a pretty fractured system where, really both sides of the aisle when it comes to the media would sensationalize information. In my opinion, Fox News was much worse, but both sides would sensationalize information and be unproductive. And, I think a lot of that has to do with the 24-hour news cycle, which was really, blown up since 9/11. Everybody wants sensationalized news. We can't just report something happened anymore. We have to add a lot of fear mongering, especially into it. And, there's just so much going on. It's just so many moving parts. And that's what I meant when I said that on my first take. There's so many moving parts. It's so hard to pin down. I think that voting for Trump was an expression from a lot of conservatives that they feel like they're being treated unfairly. And now for I would say, not the first time, but for the first time in a while, we don't just have a president. We also have a news anchor president. Somebody who in our worst times who acts sensationalized to push a narrative. You see pretty much every former president speak with a lot of decorum. It doesn't matter if it was progressive or conservative, Republican, Democrat. After a horrible event trying to lower the temperature, Trump doesn't care about that because we've mixed, presidents with some kind of a media. I mean, that's what he is. He's an entertainer president. He's trying to be fun. I'll also say that I this is going to be a little intense, but I just want to be absolutely honest. I don't think any conservatives really meaningfully care that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I don't think anybody on the left does either. I mean, the mocking of the death is horrible. But this is pretty much for the most part. You see J.D. Vance doing the last Charlie Kirk show as a way to position himself higher amongst conservatives, I guess, as a way to, put in his bid to run next cycle once Trump can no longer be president, hopefully. But even friends and family or people locally are outraged by his death. And they're like, oh, this was terrible. He was a bastion of freedom of speech. I was like, well, what's your favorite take of Charlie Kirk's? I don't know. They don't really know. Nobody really cares. A lot of this is people trying to be as angry as possible about it. And I think that there's a reason to be angry. Again, this guy was assassinated. It was horrible. But a lot of people just don't really care. They're pretending to care more than they do. And they're trying to artificially keep the temperature high. Really trying. They're really trying to keep the temperature high. It's not working. I don't think that the emotional impact is there to the degree that people wish it was. Both on the left and the right, really. People on the right really want to capitalize on this. Some people, let's just speak, especially online people. You got Steven Crowder, who how many days did it take for him to say, hey guys, I'm the #1 conservative talk show now instead of #2. It was almost immediately that Ben Shapiro was like, I'm going to start touring now, guys. It's like everybody's trying to jump in there and grab that spot. But I don't think people care as much. And I think it's unfortunate. When you look back at people like Rush Limbaugh, who remembers him? Oh, wow, that guy. Nobody really cares. I think Charlie Kirk was going to be that. I think that Charlie Kirk is a good representation of a lot of angry people when he was alive that just want to be hateful. I don't think that he had any like super dedicated fans outside of, I don't think his personality really showed through. I think it was mostly the angry, hateful things he said. And now for the most part, the anger hate market or consumers are just kind of looking for somebody else, you know? Yeah. Yeah, and then there is that. Nobody really seemed to care about Democrats being, you know, murdered. Melissa Hortman, yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. I also saw some information that talked about the shooter. It was horrible. People were talking about the shooter like immediately, oh, he's a Democrat, he's a Republican. Apparently the information, it seems like he grew up in a very heavy MAGA family. And he leaned more towards either, well, really a Groyper, like a Nick Fuentes fan, who was turning up the temperature on Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk was an adamant defender of Israel, which is another hateful thing to do, frankly. I think it's okay to think Israel has the right to exist. I don't think that completely supporting every action that the Israeli government does while downplaying the genocidal behavior in Gaza, I don't think that that's, I don't think God would approve, to be honest with you. But you know, that, I guess, intersectionality of conservatives, you know, it's one of those things where it's very contentious. You have some conservatives who like Jewish people and some that do not like them. And, you know, that is basically the difference between Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk. They seem to be on par when it comes to how much they don't care for black people or gay people or trans people. So, yeah, there's just a lot. There's just a lot. I know I'm doing a lot of preambling here, but I have a lot to say, and I want to try to say it freshly and productively. I don't want to like have this conversation, and I don't want you guys to mince my words. I'm not trying to signal for more violence. I think it's horrible. You know, I think that this is now more than any time to just really turn the temperature down here. Well, so let's get this going. All right, let's go.
Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. You know how a few days ago I made a video dedicated to talking about Hassan Piker? Well, today we've got
Hassan Parker,
another one, as you know, and this video is dedicated to Destiny. Now, whatever you may think about Destiny's ability to speak, debate, positions, rhetoric, political analysis is all completely irrelevant. Because as it was the case,
I think it's relevant in some sense, not for his video, but it's interesting because I think that Destiny is kind of pushed too far to a point where he's assassinated his credibility for anybody reasonable to want to consume his content, because he's just a really smart guy that debates really well, and I think he holds positions very well and strongly. At the same time, he's like a moral degenerate that's like way too much. I mean, the whole CSAM thing, and like the non-consensually sharing of images, there's just a laundry list of comments he's made about 15-year-olds in the past and all these other things. I don't think he's a predator, just to be clear, but he's made some just questionable, you know, dirty comments in general about a lot of things. There's just so much going on. And when you see him act out and say some pretty egregious shit, especially mocking Charlie Kirk, I think it's fair to push back against the whitewashing. But when you say some egregious shit about, you know, mocking Charlie Kirk, I mean, all you're doing is asking for some of the worst people in the world to follow you. That's all you're doing. You're not asking for more reasonable people to follow you. You're just asking for the worst of the worst to follow, you know, your stuff. You can push back productively and say things that are insensitive without trying to be insensitive, right? And I you know, I think that would be a better approach. But what the fuck do I know, right?
With Hassan Piker, he too has crossed multiple lines. I used to watch his debates sometimes. I watched him debate Andrew Wilson, I watched him debate Ben Shapiro, and in general I enjoyed listening to positions from both sides in order for me to maintain an open mind and seeing how people counter arguments that otherwise you would only hear within echo chambers. However, I completely stopped watching him after he made fun of the firefighter who lost his life during President Trump's assassination attempt. At that point,
that's a fair time to stop engaging with this content, sure.
I thought that Stephen Bonnell had reached his new low, his lowest point, but boy was I wrong. It seems like that similarly to Piker Boy, Destiny has also been calling for political violence for a while and appears to have had no repercussions when it comes to possible deplatforming or even legal procedures when it comes to that so far. Watch.
I'm ready for the great cleansing, dude.
Cleansing?
The cleansing.
How old is this clip?
What cleansing?
When we genocide conservatives in this country.
Are you gonna be out in the streets with your Glock?
Maybe. I gotta go back to Nebraska and grab it.
not to be rude, maybe you should go back to Nebraska and hang out with your kid. But yeah, obviously disgusting.
You genuinely do hate conservatives, don't you?
Very much so. Like I've moved full on to like the political violence level or the real violence level when it comes to conservative people. Yeah, I think they need to be like excised from my fucking country.
How long ago is this clip from? This looks pretty old.
I think they are demonstrably fucking evil people by any moral system that most people would use.
Yeah, you instead are a saint.
And then I just hate them.
I mean, there's a level of truth to what he's saying. I just don't think that the way he's saying it, I think it's disgusting. Also, I don't think all conservatives are demonstrably evil. I mean, I live in New York and my family are conservative, but they're not like anti-gay and well, actually some of them are. Actually, we're still at the don't ask, don't tell area for gay people. So you know what? I don't think that they're evil people. It's frustrating because they're good family people. They've really taught me strong family values, but at the same time, a lot of people in my family are still like Trump supporters, very anti-left. It's very frustrating. I've said this before. It's frustrating to be part of a family, a lot of which are conservative, that taught me how to love in such like a strong way, regardless of which side of my family it is. They've taught me to love. You know, I have like basically an adopted family. You know, the amount of love that they've shown me has been profound and undeserved on my part, and they still show it. And even like my biological family, you know, a lot of strong love, you know. So it's kind of hurts as a human being to watch those people vote for Trump. Especially when I have like family members, especially a cousin who I love a lot, you know, the closest thing I'll ever have to a brother. Because his father, you know, was a pretty prominent male role model for me. But he's gay. And for me, it's just like, I don't understand. It's so hard for me to contend with that. And I understand their thoughts and their feelings. Like I have one family member who owns a business and they're frustrated because they feel like, and there's probably a level of truth to like illegal immigration, making it difficult for them to run their business because some illegal immigrants are doing their job, which is a union job, for significantly less money. And it's cutting into his ability to provide a business. And so I understand that. I do understand it, but it's just like, fuck. It's just like, you know, it's frustrating. It's a little bit tough, you know? It's a tough thing. So it's difficult. And a lot of these people are very busy. They're very busy people, and they have a lot going on, and they don't have the time to, frankly, educate themselves on what they're talking about. Like, for instance, in the Biden administration, there was a really good bill that was proposed by conservatives to heavily limit illegal immigration or people taking advantage of the asylum seeking process. And Donald Trump, you know, he pressed conservatives to knock it down because he wanted to run on the border. And I feel like if you knew that, you'd be like, oh, okay. Or if you didn't fall for there's all these millions of people or 15 million people or whatever the number is there's a number of border crossings there's a number of border interactions during Biden's administration that are interactions. Some crossed, some were turned away, et cetera, et cetera. And it's always proposed as those are the people who crossed. And nobody acknowledges that like there was a backlog of people who couldn't get in during COVID that now wanted to seek asylum. And we do need to acknowledge our broken asylum seeking process. I totally understand that. But like Donald Trump wasn't really interested in fixing that problem, and he was interested in capitalizing on it and coming in and, you know, just becoming president so he could hurt the system. I mean, our system's rough. There's tax cuts for billionaires. We're not giving, you know, we've significantly cut money for children around the world, for relief for vulnerable people around the world, for people in our own country, just to give billionaires tax cuts. There's conversations about taking away guns from trans people, banning gay marriage, due process is being violated. You know, these tariffs are making an unease in the market. You have Trump demanding to lower interest rates, despite the fact that that's not his jurisdiction, because he wants to put more money in the market, which in the long term is going to have a negative impact on inflation. People have less money in their pocket because these tariffs are driving up prices for people. Businesses can't just continuously consume the tariffs as they sit in this uneasy market state, which is lowering the amount of money people have to pay for other things like union workers. I don't know. Sorry, I'm ranting a little bit. I have a lot of thoughts, you know, but it's just a lot of things going on. Very frustrating. Some people in my family just aren't open to the conversation. They get very frustrated when you give them a little bit of pushback, you know?
because they tend to destroy the outcomes related to this country, which is what I'm concerned with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a topic I'm not yet sort of ready to touch.
Conservatives have been disgusting for years, which is why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies and gets shot or whatever the fuck, okay? Because they had no problem making fun of Paul Pelosi. The entire world.
I think this one is reasonable. Not giving a fuck is a bit different. It's callous, but it's a little bit different from saying that I'm ready to, effectively take care of them myself. That's inappropriate. Saying that you no longer care, I can understand that perspective.
Would be better off if these people were permanently removed from these platforms. Like, there is no downside and only upside to see people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool never be allowed to publicly broadcast their opinions ever again.
I think Tim Pool should be banned from. I think Tim Pool should be in jail for treason. Right? I mean, he was taking money from Tenet Media, a Russian-linked company, to spread Russian disinformation. One of the things I used to love about conservatives was their willingness to engage in, disavow people who were taking Russian money. It's very unfortunate that we got rid of that.
It's exclusively bad stuff that happens. Conservatives have been
I think you have been disgusting for years. The logical idiocy.
There's a little truth to that as well. He has been disgusting for years.
Of trying to tell us that laughing and making fun of Pelosi's husband's situation is horrific and ending up doing the same thing. Hypocrite. Of course, making fun of what happened to Pelosi is wrong, was wrong, should be condemned, but you did the same thing.
So I just need to be very clear here. Destiny is like an immoral, disgusting fuck. Destiny's also a YouTuber. And when you see Donald Trump mocking the assault of Nancy Pelosi's husband, talking about pushing a false conspiracy theory that it was his gay lover who was let in and they were just having some dispute, I think that's probably different from Destiny mocking Charlie Kirk's death. I think Donald Trump mocking anybody's death and raising the temperature when it comes to Charlie Kirk is worse than whatever Destiny has to say, to be honest with you. And if you're not willing to have that conversation, I don't think that the commentary here is going to be worth anything. I don't like Destiny, but like we have to kind of break through the delusion that Donald Trump isn't somehow the most powerful man in the world. He is. And when he mocks something, the intensity of Donald Trump saying something could be 1/10 of the intensity of Destiny's and still be worse. Because this is a president of the United States versus an edgy streamer. And so, like, that's fucking crazy. That's fucking insane. Holding Destiny to the same standard of the president of the United States, it's brain broken. It's interesting because if you do that, you're telling me that you think Destiny is amazing. That's what you're telling me. You're saying to me that Destiny is so amazing and influential, he's on the same level as Donald Trump. That's fucking crazy. The president of the United States. That is the president of the United States. That's fucking crazy. It's just fucking crazy.
You are no better than the people you say you hate. You should hate yourself now. There are plenty of
I'm sure he does.
people in this world who have never made fun or laughed at someone else's misfortunes. You are not one of them.
Neither is Trump. Trump is worse than Destiny because he's a larger person.
So what happens? This is, of course, just the tip of the iceberg.
He's not holding him to that standard. He's talking principles. He's holding him to that standard. If he's not... The fact that he doesn't acknowledge that point here is telling enough to me. You need to speak carefully. You're speaking to how many different people? There's 115,000 people watch this video in less than a day. When you say when you speak about Destiny in that way and you fail, at least so far, you fail to say Donald Trump is a much more popular figure and his words are more either healing or damaging than Destiny's, that omission is either ignorance or it's intentional. And either way, in my opinion, it reduces your standing and the ability to have this conversation. Because that's fucking crazy. You need to be careful. This is why you need to be meaningful. This is why I wanted to wait a week before I talked about Charlie Kirk. Because I wanted to do my best to try to be as meaningful and intentional and careful about what I'm saying. Because this is an important topic, even if I'm not an important person. I'd like to try to be, talk about it like I'm, with some kind of fucking decorum. That's important to talk about. it's important to talk about things like that. Like Donald Trump did capitalize. I want to be clear. He did capitalize on a very broken political atmosphere. He didn't create any of the things that he's doing, but he's certainly making them worse. And he's the worst representation of a politician, capitalizing on hate, anger, and violence than I've ever seen. These things existed before him, but he's like a festering wound. And we have to acknowledge that in some form. We can't compare Donald Trump, the president, to Destiny, the streamer. Without acknowledging the difference in what they do and their importance as people.
Let's have a look at what kind of posts he has produced after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, shall we? For instance, there is this clip. During a Piers Morgan Uncensored, the following statement was made. Stop calling everyone you disagree with Nazis. There is a real world out there, and your words can make people pick up guns.
That is true. I want to be absolutely clear, though. From my understanding, there are two politicians that have called Donald Trump a Nazi. And I know we're talking about Charlie Kirk, but we need to talk about this. Those two people are J.D. Vance, his vice president, and RFK, his, I don't know, fucking vaccine denier. We just forget about those. It is commonplace in politics to sensationalize our language and call people the worst thing we can think of, and it's wrong. But again, Destiny versus politicians. Destiny maybe will call Charlie Kirk a Nazi, but you have people like J.D. Vance and people like RFK now guzzling Trump's cum, but used to say that he was a Nazi. Where did that energy go? Yeah, J.D. Vance. Excuse me, J.D. Vance compared him to Hitler. All right, this should be
J.D.
it.
Vance, former President Trump's VP pick, once called him a moral disaster and, quote, possibly America's Hitler. Here's a flashback to 2016 on how he felt about Trump then.
I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I'm definitely not going to vote for Trump because I think that he's projecting very complex problems onto simple villains.
Fast forward to 2024.
I don't hide from that. I was certainly skeptical of Donald Trump in 2016, but President Trump was a great president and he changed my mind. I think he changed the...
J.D. Vance.
What the fuck kind of this? It literally says it once called him possibly America's Hitler, and then they didn't actually put that quote in there. It's fucking annoying as shit. It seems like the best I could find are people quoting him.
An NPR quote, I can't stomach Trump, and once comparing him to Hitler. In now deleted tweets, he's called Trump an idiot, noxious, and...
Oh, he wrote it. That makes sense. He wrote it, so he didn't say it. All right, well, you know what? Fair enough. Either way, it doesn't matter. he's compared Trump to Hitler before. This is the quote here. I go back and forth between thinking Trump is a cynical asshole like Nixon who wouldn't be that bad and might even prove useful, or that he's America's Hitler. How's that for discouraging? Vance writes in his message. So yeah, he's referred to him as like a fucking Nazi. I mean, I don't know if you guys know this. Hitler was the Nazi. But anyway, sure. All right, let's see what we got here.
I agree, 100%. What does Mr. Bonnell say in response to that? You know what actually legitimizes widespread violence? ? The President of the United States constantly reminding people that the 2020 elections was fraudulent.
Well, Destiny's right there. That's a reasonable, meaningful way to push back against the whitewashing of Charlie Kirk's death.
Close quotes. The words spoken, the claims made by the President of the United States do not legitimize any form of widespread violence. And in this type of mentality that causes outcomes such as what happened to Charlie Kirk. And mind you, this post was made 23 hours ago, which means after the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
That's a very reasonable tweet from Destiny. This is a reasonable tweet, though, from Destiny. Like, yes, you shouldn't be going around calling people Nazis. Again, Charlie Kirk was not particularly fond of black people, thought they were better off in the 1940s, and regrets the Civil Rights Act. I don't think that's Nazi-ish, but I think it's KKK-ish. This isn't mocking the death, though. I don't care about reasonable pushbacks against criticism or the acknowledgement of conservatives that they are part of the political violence. It's worse. The political violence from conservatives is worse, and the reason it's worse is specifically because it's coming from Donald Trump. The political violence on the left is not coming from major figureheads. We didn't get anything from Joe Biden even close to anything that Trump ever said. There was like one quote people complain about with Biden because he said like MAGA conservatives, not all conservatives, but just like MAGA conservatives, people who wear the hat. In my opinion, literal fucking cult members are not good for the Republican Party. Something like that. That's true. But Donald Trump is constantly raising the temperature, mocking Paul Pelosi for being attacked. What did he put up? He put up a meme about how we're ready to go to war. He changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And so, like, yeah, it's not like it's just some people in the conservative party or some randoms on Twitter or some right wing content creator. It's the president of the United States, and this is not mocking Charlie Kirk's death. This is like, listen, Trump is the most powerful man in the world, the most influential man in the world, and he's the one pushing political violence from conservatives, right? You can have productive conversations about Charlie Kirk's assassination. You can. Mocking it, I think, is disgusting, but this point is not bad.
No. Whatever statement made by the President of the United States legitimizes you to use your words to disagree or make debunking videos, if that's what you want to do, that's what it legitimizes you to do. I guess you could strike, as long as you keep it peaceful. Okay. That's it.
Do you think that, maybe he's saying that was peaceful? Do you think that's peaceful?
People that the 2020 elections was fraudulent, close quotes. The words spoken, the claims made by the President of the United States do not legitimize any form of widespread violence. And
I'm struggling to understand what he's saying here.
20 elections was fraudulent, close quotes. The words spoken, the claims made by the President of the United States do not legitimize any form of widespread violence. And
they don't. But it encourages it. And so I'm not understanding what you're trying to say. Are you saying that he doesn't encourage the violence?
In this type of mentality that causes outcomes such as what happened to Charlie Kirk. And mind you, this post was made 23 hours ago, which means after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. No. Whatever statement made by the President of the United States legitimizes you to use your words to disagree or make debunking videos, if that's what you want to do, that's what it legitimizes you to do.
Well, okay. Maybe I'm just like struggling to understand this point here. Maybe I'm fucking stupid. Okay. That's what he did there, though.
I guess you could strike, as long as you keep it peaceful.
Sure,
but that's
I agree.
What else did he post?
Okay. That seemed to be your example of him being bad, though. That was fine. But okay.
Let's check this one on his page.
I hate Charlie Kirk. I think he's actually a Satan spawn, but he's very, very strategically minded. I hate Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think he's actually a Satan spawn, but he's very, very strategically minded.
But this was before he was assassinated, right?
I hate Charlie Kirk. I think he's actually...
Right. Charlie Kirk is a Satan spawn, according to... And somehow...
Yeah, that's fair.
CNN showed that.
Here's the thing, right? Charlie Kirk was Satan spawn, and I don't see that to mock his death. Well, I wouldn't say he's Satan spawn. I think he's a terrible, horrific person who would have championed getting rid of the Civil Rights Act because he's spoken disgustingly about black people and said he'd force his own child to carry his rapist baby. This isn't him mocking his death. This is him saying he was a horrible person before he passed away. He was. Why are you so interested in whitewashing? I think Destiny should be condemned for him mocking Charlie Kirk's death, but saying something before his death about how bad of a person Charlie Kirk is, the person who would abuse his own daughter by forcing her to give birth to her rapist's baby, that's a satanic perspective or a disgusting perspective. What do you want me to tell you? Okay. All right. I mean, like, just to be absolutely clear, here's how I know Charlie Kirk is the disgusting person. He was friends with Alex Jones. They would do collaborations. What is Alex Jones known for? He's known for mocking the deaths of children at Sandy Hook. We have to stop pretending that this is a good person. This is a disgusting person. That's disgusting. That's a disgusting thing. These children, these babies were murdered. And the first thing that Alex Jones did was capitalized on it by pushing false narratives about it being fake. And who is his friend? Charlie Kirk. That's evil. That's disgusting. I don't know what else to tell you. But that's like a very evil perspective. And again, this was before Charlie Kirk was killed. But it was after Charlie Kirk said he forced his daughter to give birth to her rapist baby. That's hard. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me. That is such an abusive thing. Could you imagine that your daughter was sexually assaulted and you forced her to keep that child and raise that child? Like, that is that's emotional and mental abuse and manipulation. That's satanic. Being friends with, or even associating with Alex Jones is demonic. It's disgusting. Sorry, maybe you don't want to hear the word satanic. It's not of God. God would never endorse a person who was so hateful. Yeah, okay. I don't know. What happened? There are better examples to go after Destiny for. Okay.
Absolutely, CNN, show this tolerance. I am sure that the left is going to be packed of new people moving from the center thinking, man, you know what? This is what I really want.
Well, this is a 4-second clip from a greater video, so if he had more to say there, then okay.
But you convinced me now that yeah, this is exactly the 12. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, did you watch the full interview? Like, I mean, I watched it. I don't remember any of it specifically, but you know, that's a 4 seconds of it. So I don't think that 4 seconds of that clip was meant to do that. But okay.
12th of September. And what he has to say about it, make a joke and change it into was.
I've noticed a lot of people clipping this video and trying to use it to say I believe in things I don't, or claim I'm saying things that I'm not actually saying. As an online political commentator, I believe it's my responsibility to ensure that I'm delivering my message as clear and concise as a way as possible. If too many people are misrepresenting what I'm saying, I need to do a better job to correct my language appropriately. I want to be clear about the language in the clip. It is from August 2025 and before the recent politically motivated assassination occurred. Make no mistake, I absolutely would not say the same thing today, recognizing the events that have recently unfolded. It would be more accurate to say I hated Charlie Kirk. I think he was a Satan's one. Yeah, so he's making a silly joke here, probably not smart to do, but also I don't think that this clip is particularly damning. So
that's why you're these people.
Okay. Is now the appropriate time? I mean, I've been seeing stuff all over Twitter about some of his like worst things that he's ever said. I mean, do we want to we want to start now? Like talking about the horrible things he said before he passed? Well, obviously, because he can't say anything now, but
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist.
Okay.
But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us.
That's not what they're doing. They're saying the only reason that they got the opportunity is because of affirmative action, which needed to exist when people basically back in the day before affirmative action that helped black people, the world was affirmative action for white people. If you were white, you got a job over a black person. That's basically the way that it worked. Do we need it anymore? Maybe not. We could have a conversation about not needing affirmative action anymore. But my mom was born before black people were considered people in this country. 1964 or 5? We got 1 generation ago. Black people weren't considered equal. To sit here and say affirmative action is bad or stupid or wrong is ignorant, and it's intentionally divisive, and it's capitalizing on hate. So just this by itself is disgusting, especially since I'm pretty sure Charlie Kirk's a college dropout, and these people are educated. One of the people he's referencing has a doctorate degree. Just to be clear, affirmative action is not going to get you a doctorate or a master's degree or any type of upper education. It might give you an opportunity to get there, but it's not going to get you to the finish line.
They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously.
Steal a white person's slot? Okay. Gotcha. Why would it go to a white person? Why wouldn't it go to another black person that could have been qualified? Why does it have to be a white? We're trying to play into racist white supremacists. We want racist white supremacists to jump on to our rhetoric. We want the type of audience of racist people. It's one thing to say these individual black people I think are DEI hires, but black people in general, they can, they can still work or whatever. They can still be equal to white people. What's not what we're doing. We're saying that they explicitly stole from white people. They sold a slot from a white person. Okay.
Cut 52.
Gotcha.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, and particularly in higher education.
This woman is very clearly born at a time when black people weren't considered equal to us. So much for not turning your stuff into slop drama. Your joke. I'm not turning it into slop drama. We're having like a real conversation about this. It's okay that you came into this segment 50 minutes in and you're ignorant to everything I've said beforehand. But if you're not going to watch it, like that's okay. But like you're the problem. I'm not turning this into slop. I want to have a productive conversation about this. This is important. Just because he's dead doesn't erase the horrible impact that he had. He never should have been killed. He never should have been murdered. He didn't deserve that. His family doesn't deserve that. But like we can have a productive conversation about how we got here, and we don't have to pretend that he was a good person because he wasn't. Like that's the thing.
I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own. I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving.
Why not acknowledge that person was born at a time where black people weren't considered people? And why would you omit that part of the conversation unless you didn't want to talk about how there was a time where black people would not get a job even if they're more qualified? Unless you're trying to say something without saying something. As any type of content creator, public speaker, you need to be very aware and very careful of the way that you speak, because it's not just about what you say, it's about what you don't say. And when you say something like that without qualifying that the affirmative action used to be 100% necessary, maybe nowadays it's not, but without making that understanding and qualification or context, you're trying to guide people in a certain direction, and that is in a more racist, angry, victim complex direction, and you're specifically trying to generate white viewers to do that. You're creating a victim complex in white people. You're redirecting the conversation from there's an extraordinary amount of money that's centralized at the top in the billionaire class. Let's blame black people for that. Most of your problems come from billionaires. They don't come from black people, Hispanic people, illegal immigrants, anywhere else. They come from billionaires. We could sit here. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't come from that group of people that you don't like. And if it does, the billionaires want that. Who do you think's hiring illegal immigrants? The billionaires are so influential. Why are they not trying to meaningfully end these problems they don't, because they capitalize on it. They capitalize on it, right? They want this. They want the cheap labor that comes from illegal immigration, or else they wouldn't hire these people. But they want it while telling you to be angry at them. So why are we focused on illegal immigration? Why aren't we focused on the businesses that are hiring illegal immigrants? Right? Why aren't we focused on the billionaires who have so much money saved away that maximize their pay so much, especially CEOs at healthcare industries? Why don't we talk about how every single time a healthcare CEO pays himself an extra $10,000 a year, how many people die because of that? How many people are robbed of their ability to have healthcare? Hardworking Americans are robbed of their ability to live. Their parents are robbed of their ability to live. Their grandparents, maybe even their children, are robbed of their ability to live because a healthcare CEO wants an extra $10,000 they don't need. we always have these conversations in such like a stupid way. It's fucking ridiculous.
You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course, that's why we need affirmative action, because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course. Oh no, imagine the world without Joy Reid. Imagine the world without Sheila Jackson Lee or Michelle Obama or Ketanji Brown Jackson. They think this is persuasive. They think as they kind of now reveal that I'm only here because of anti-white, anti-Asian forced discrimination policies that turn me into a bitter, resentful activist that hates white people, honestly, through our policies.
Again, there's a productive conversation to have that affirmative action may not be necessary anymore, but there was certainly a time it was necessary. And without that being part of the conversation, you're trying to push an agenda of hating black people. And what's so funny is that one of the people in the chat said something like, "Well, even before the Civil Rights Act, black people were still considered separate but equal. They had their own water fountains." That's what they effectively said. That's the type of person that we're dealing with, a legitimate racist who thinks that not being equal is somehow okay.
Time for us to stop.
Wow, that's not loud at all.
Listening to rap music and this degenerate hip-hop stuff and go back to the music that built our civilization. I believe marriage has been one.
Like what music? I mean, there can be some violence inside of different medias of music. For sure, that can have an impact. It's not just in rap music. It depends on what kind of rap music there is. I wonder if we qualify that.
One man and one woman. We must ban trans-affirming care the entire country. I think that monogamous heterosexual marriage should be a prerequisite to adoption.
So you're comparing abortion to the Holocaust?
So just to be clear, man, I don't... I guess maybe this is a little bit of a spicy take. If you are against trans rights and gay rights, I think that you're a bad person. Especially gay rights. I mean, you know, the only foundation that you have for your belief system is that a book from thousands of years ago said so. We have to stop taking that seriously. I think it's a beautiful thing to love God. I think it's a beautiful thing to understand God's message of love. It's not a beautiful thing to listen to people from 2,000 years ago and their interpretation of what they think God's love is. I think that's disgusting. Gay marriage is a fact that needs to maintain for equality. And not a single person that advocates against gay marriage has ever said we should have something separate but equal, which is still wrong. You shouldn't. You know, separation from church is, hey, once you gave tax breaks to marriage, you know, but none of them are even saying that. They just hate gay people. And enough is enough. Trans people also, they should have access to mental health things. It's not a hot take to say. We have robust data, and every day it's changing, I'm sure, as we get better at figuring out these problems. Then that's the way that we're leaning. And if you're not in support of that, like, you're anti-mental health. Right? And it's like, you know, we have to, I'm not trying to be a fucking asshole. I'm kind of tired of like pretending that your idea that gay people shouldn't be able to get married or that trans people who just want to work and make an honest living don't deserve healthcare. That makes you a disgusting fuck. You're a gross person. I think it's so gross. And what that tells me is that you're so you just have no connection to God. Is what that tells me, because like you should understand that when you see verses in the Bible about how God spoke to a person, God doesn't speak. God doesn't vocalize to anybody. God talks to people through feelings. You know, I remember learning about like the flapping of butterflies and the miracles outside. God speaks to us through miracles, the miracles of birth, the miracles of the wind. God doesn't talk to us in words. He talks to us in feelings. And so this Bible, you have events from like thousands of years ago. Where like they justified slavery. But if you look back at the time, what were they doing? Well, they created rules that were a little better for slaves than things were before that. Slavery is disgusting, but we understand that God's love is trying to push people to be more accepting of each other. Nowadays, what does that mean? That means that it's time to accept gay people for the virtue of their existence, as long as everything is consensual. And if you're not willing to do something like that for gay or trans people, like understand that you can talk about God as much as you want. You can advocate for him as much as you want. You could say you believe as much as you want. But I will guarantee you this. God is going to choose the virtuous atheist over you. That's it. I refuse to believe that God is so petty and so vindictive that he would choose a hateful, spite-driven, nasty person to live in heaven with him that used their religion as a bludgeon to harm other people than somebody who didn't believe in him but fully expressed and communicated his love, whether he knew it was whether that person knew it was from God or not. I refuse to believe that. And we have to start pushing back against this rhetoric better, more constructively. If you have a family member that hates gay people, that's okay. Well, it's not okay. You could still love them, but this is not an acceptable thought. That's not an acceptable thought.
Absolutely, I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse. It's worse. Like a capitalist every single.
Yeah, no, it's not worse. I think one of the things that frustrate me about conservatives when it comes to abortion is that they don't care about people. I think it is so disgusting, at least not in a policy perspective. I understand people who are frustrated that they think taxes are being used incorrectly. But realistically speaking, people like Charlie Kirk were really happy to denounce abortion even when it came to their own kid getting raped. That's what he said. He'd make his daughter carry her rapist baby. That's abusive. It's disgusting. No good father would ever say that. But once the baby was born, it was, let's take away protections for them. You know, let's get rid of, aid from the United States to other countries for vulnerable children. God didn't say only protect the white kids or the American kids. God wanted to protect all kids. Yeah. And it's almost like these people will pretend to be religious so that people will be born. And I don't believe that a fetus is a person. I don't think it is assigned personhood. You can think I'm ignorant, but if you were staying morally consistent, once this person was born, you'd want to engage in robust safety nets to help them, healthcare, more meaningful redistribution of wealth. We shouldn't have a single billionaire until we have no more homeless people, but we don't have that. Money going to other countries. Charlie Kirk was a huge advocate of Israel genociding Gaza. I don't know. I don't understand. Why are those children less deserving of life? Because they have a different religious perspective. It's like you guys are pro-birth. You don't care what happens after the baby is born.
If I see a black pilot.
Oh, is this trying to say that when he said Shank Uger, it was actually a slur?
Like a capitalist every single day. If I see a
Oh, yeah, I don't care about that. That was cut down.
black pilot, I'm going to be like, worse. Like a capitalist every single day. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. When black.
When I see any pilot, I hope they're qualified. But I don't think, again, he's very anti any type of affirmative action and refuses to ignore the history of it needing to be happen.
Blacks in America did not. He's qualified. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous. There was less break-ins. Why is that? And the data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened?
Do you really think he thinks it's evil, though? Why bring that up? What do you think is the difference? Anybody out there, what do you think Charlie Kirk thinks is the difference? Does he think that there was a systemic oppression that existed that overpunished black people? And do you think that decades of being decimated and having lack of access to the finances to climb out of your shitty situation, do you think that that has an impact on why there are higher violence rates from certain groups of people in the United States? I mean, really, again, this is a class issue. Well, racism would die in the United States if we would stop allowing billionaires to steal money from us through the means of technology, displacing jobs and driving down wages. If we taxed them correctly, if we redistributed better, as we lose the ability to have as many jobs. You know, I think that people have this tendency of focusing. So, well, unemployment's been relatively consistent forever, right? It's been 3 to 5% for the most part, barring some extreme events. But has anybody looked at the labor force participation rate? In the 1990s, it was 90%. Now it's like 63%. Less people have the access to jobs, and they're not in the labor force. Some of those people are retired and whatnot. A lot of those people just can't find jobs. There are towns that have been destroyed by the loss of a factory job that used to fuel the entire town, and those are gone. Factories shut down. Why? Because of automation. Billionaires are making tremendous amounts of money. Why are we not doing anything to stop that? Right? Again, this is whole conversation. Charlie Kirk just wants you to think black people are less than. He's using language that can be interpreted by different groups of people based on how they want to interpret it. If you are comfortable using language that can be interpreted by a white supremacist as a way that you validate their feelings as a white supremacist, you know what you're doing, and you're a disgusting person. I don't want white supremacists in my audience, so I would never speak in that way. Charlie Kirk does speak in that way. So either you think he's incredibly or was incredibly stupid, which I don't think he was. I think he was a very smart man. Or you think he's intentionally leaving out the conversation about historical systemic oppression that had a negative impact on black people. It's one of those two things. There's no third option.
A certain skin color now gets their own summertime celebration. Oh, wow, look how far blacks have come. It has now become a racial complaining day. Remember what BLM stands for: burn, loot, and murder. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he's referring to, what is he referring to? He's referring to Juneteenth?
Remember what BLM stands for: burn. It is now become their own summertime celebration.
Is he talking about Juneteenth? Yeah, he's talking about Juneteenth. Juneteenth is so funny to me because what Juneteenth represents is the day that slaves were freed in America. That is what it represents. I believe it was when like the last group of slaves were told that they were no longer slaves. But it represents the end of slavery in America. Explain to me why that is a bad thing to celebrate. I think it's a beautiful thing to celebrate the end of slavery in America. I think that would be fantastic if we celebrated the end of that. For me, personally, I think. You know, I don't know about other people. That's one of the best holidays that we could ever have. It should be a national holiday. Racism was a disgusting stain on our country. The fact that it no longer exists is something that we should celebrate, and that day of celebration should also come with the acknowledgement that we once thought a group of people were less than another group of people because of the color of their skin. Why shouldn't we celebrate that day?
Oh, wow, look how far blacks have come. It has now become a racial complaining day. Remember what BLM stands for: burn, loot, and murder.
Yeah, DEI stands for
one of the
biggest.
Didn't earn it, just so we're clear.
Can we also...
DEI protects people like my gay cousin from being fired for being gay. DEI protects your wife from being treated as less than for being a woman in a workplace. Again, you could have productive conversations about maybe wanting to end affirmative action in some areas, but at the end of the day, DEI means well, and it means to protect different groups of people. You can think it's not necessary, but that's what it's for. The lack of acknowledgement of that is just weak. No real man would ever speak about DEI this way.
Acknowledge, due to the laws under Jim Crow, that black people were significantly hindered from economic advancement.
This is a really important question. The data shows not really. Black Americans are
That's not true. You think that black people were doing well under Jim Crow is fucking insane. What about the destruction of Black Wall Street? Whatever happened there? Okay.
We're today in 2024 than they were in the 1950s. The disappearance of the black father has been the number one driver of black poverty in this country. At least.
Why? What do you think needs to change? Well, it's billionaires. Trump, of course, he would never change that. He gets he would get insane amounts of money from billionaires every year to push this message of anti-black sentiment instead of anti-billionaire sentiment, which is what we need. He was paid to redirect your attention away from the billionaires on the left or right, it doesn't matter who, squeezing the middle class out of money, even though we're the ones that are doing all the work, and redirect it to another group, whether it was immigrants or black people or this or that. That's the whole point.
Just agree that black dads not being around is a bad thing.
It is a bad thing. Any dad not being around is a bad thing.
Anyone's father not being around
is the great replacement theory. They want to replace white Anglo-Saxon Christian Protestants with Mexican Nicaraguans, with El Salvadorians.
You're comparing.
So he's pushing the idea of the Great Replacement Theory, which is basically saying that there is a shadowy force in America, which is weird because he does love Israel, that's trying to replace white people by mass immigration. That's simply stupid. If you wanted to promote higher birth rates, you would promote more social safety nets. The reason why birth rates are going down, there's a lot for white people, or really any any group in America that has access to money or education mostly. The reason is because people, well, really it's education. The more educated you are, the less likely you're going to want to have a kid too soon. right? And so if you have access to education protocols, good schooling, and even the prospects of a decent job, you're going to make educated decisions to hold off on having a baby until you satisfy having enough money to have that baby. Whereas people who tend to have less access to education don't make as many good decisions. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you guys know that. And so for smart people, if you want smart people to have babies, what you need to do is you need to provide them the relief to have babies. It can mean different things. A conservative might say UBI, let people have the ability to use that money how they feel, whether it's for childcare or school or this or that. I like that idea. Or you might say you want to have more universal preschools or something along those lines, or universal healthcare, which I think we need anyway, to relieve some tension. Imagine having to pay $20,000 in a hospital debt. You're going to be like, I'm not going to have a kid yet. Right? And so, like, that's what's happening. You want to incentivize higher birth rates, you would do something like that. Again, Charlie Kirk's not interested in incentivizing higher birth rates. He's interested in spouting negative rhetoric from people that are a different skin color than him. That's what the whole point is.
Bring abortion to the Holocaust.
Absolutely, I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to
Yeah, he's talking about the 4 black women from earlier, I believe. There were 4.
be taken somewhat serious. Empathy. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. But
empathy is the only thing that's keeping us moving forward as a society. I just need people to understand that. Empathy is one of the most beautiful things. Can you over-empathize? 1,000%. But realistically speaking, the fundamentals of empathy are the fundamentals of spreading positive and productive knowledge. Okay, if you are in let's just like really bring it down to a small society. Let's say it's a small society of 1,000 people, and you learn how to make a wheel. If you say, I'm never going to teach you how to do this thing, how much do you think that the idea of this new innovation that makes life easier will spread? It's not going to be very easy to spread that. Or let's say you're somebody who's like, oh, I made a wheel. Let me share this knowledge with everybody else. How much better off do you think that the society is going to be? Yeah. Oh, there you go. Empathy is good. Over-empathy is bad. I agree with that. But God teaches love and empathy. So I don't really even understand how you come to that perspective.
more.
Okay. Let's just keep going.
I think it's worth it.
This is him saying it's worth, gun deaths are worth, are worth some people passing away, which is a horrible thing. And I don't think that that's true. I think we should have the Second Amendment, but we need more common sense gun control. Frankly, I don't really want to show this clip. I already know what he says. I really just don't want to show this clip because he was obviously assassinated. I think that's a horrible thing. But like it, it's disgusting. It's horrible when children are shot. Again, we're talking about a man, and he didn't deserve to be assassinated, but we're talking about a man who was friends with Alex Jones, who was famous for mocking the deaths of children, babies murdered in Sandy Hook. I think that if I was a conservative and I was really for gun rights, and I am for gun rights, I just think that we need like some kind of common sense gun control. We need a gun license, like we have driver's licenses. Driver's licenses reduce vehicular deaths. A gun license would teach respect for using a firearm and reduce deaths for that. But if I was a conservative who is really pro 2A, I would absolutely not be friends with a conspiracy theorist that mocked the deaths of babies. But he would have Alex Jones on his show. I don't know to me, life can be so complicated sometimes that it can get really simple. I just find that to be an appalling thought. I would never be able to do that. I think that's just so disgusting.
Like a fraternity guy and a...
Oh, I don't know is this when he gets shot? No, it's not. Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure I knew.
Like a fraternity guy and a sorority girl at age 19 hooking up, both 5 drinks in at 2 a.m. and all of a sudden she removes consent. Yeah, that's a murky middle gray area. And excuse me when I say...
She still removed consent, did she not?
It's not a murky gray area, just to be clear.
Okay, but again,
if he continues to go onward with that...
I understand the idea that if 2 people are at the same level of drunk, you can't really take advantage of the other person if they give consent. Because here's the idea. Let's say you were not drunk at all, and the other person you're interacting with is really drunk, and they're like, yeah, I'm fine, I want it, but they're really fucked up, like blackout drunk. What you're doing is disgusting and predatory. But if you're both the same level of drunk and you do it, and the next day one of you regrets it, I don't know what to tell you. You're both at the same cognitive level being, drinking. But if you're both drunk and one removes consent and the other person doesn't, you stop, or it's rape. There's no murky gray area here. And this saying this as a 30-year-old man not understanding that's dangerous as well. That's a dangerous predatory thought. And I think in conjunction with forcing your child, your baby, to have their rapist baby, that is a lot of dangerous rhetoric, abusive rhetoric.
Encounter again that he is sexually assaulting her.
Again, that is such an unfair categorization.
No, it's not. Only a weak man would think that.
More young women need to get married at a younger age and start having kids. The single woman issue is one of the biggest issues facing the civilization. Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth and she would and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
It is graphic, but it's a good question.
It's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered.
I don't know. I'm so sorry. It's so horrible, but that's like a horribly abusive thing to say about your own daughter. I would never psychologically torture my daughter by even making her birth that child. Let alone carry it after the fact. I just think it's disgusting. This is just RFK talking about how he met Charlie Kirk when he was like 7. Charlie Kirk was 7. He meant to say a different time. It's just like silly and ridiculous. Right? I mean, we have more of his grace. We have so many different things that we could be like, listen, this guy was not of a particularly positive character.
Comparing abortion to the Holocaust.
Absolutely, I am. In fact,
I think a lot of these are repeated. So,
were these blacks trying to go rob her happening all the time in urban?
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Referring to a black person as blacks is just racist. I mean, we're at that point now where we can't have a Joey Swoll moment every single day. At least Joey Swoll isn't a political content creator, so you can forgive him for speaking out of turn. Charlie Kirk is smarter and knows what he's doing when he says something like that. You don't talk about an entire group as less than. Wanting to have a conversation about a group of people doing a bad thing is fine. Having a conversation while using a word that is derogatory towards them is disgusting. He doesn't like black people.
In America, prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
I like how it's blacks and white people. Why not whites? It's intentional. He wants this to be communicated in a certain way. If you're a really reasonable person, well, you wouldn't be listening to Charlie Kirk, but you might be like, oh, he's just referring to some black people and he's speaking a little bit out of touch. But if you're a racist, you love these words. You should never be comfortable with somebody expressing racist shit. Because you wouldn't want, they shouldn't be comfortable. They shouldn't be comfortable with wanting a racist in their community. He knows what he's doing.
Black crime is a major issue in our country. Why are you pushing criminal justice reform exactly?
I mean, that would help resolve that issue, but okay.
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, the southern border is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically.
We've already talked about this clip as well.
They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white...
Who's they? Who's trying to do that? The Democrats, you would say.
Agenda. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge.
I mean, that's obviously an ignorant thing to say. The problem with submitting to your husband is when you have a husband that is okay, that would make their daughter birth and raise their rapist's baby. This is where we get, or who doesn't understand what consent is. This is why men, or just men or just women, why one group cannot just be the ones with power. Because Charlie Kirk has called consent into question. He doesn't seem to be okay with removing of consent in the middle of sex. So how is it that you can submit? It's a difficult take to say submit to your husband when the things that you have said would cause your wife and your children to be harmed. And when you speak in these ways, your kids pick up on it in different ways. When you speak in a way where if a woman removes consent, that it's still okay for the man to continue in a roundabout way, that's what you're saying. You're communicating to her that she is less than every man that she sees. When you say that she has to birth and raise her rapist baby, you're communicating that like her trauma from getting assaulted and having to do those things is less than the rights that rapist had, because now you have to raise this rapist's baby. You're assigning more rights to the rapist than your own daughter. Again, this is why we need feminism. Are there some people who are cringe? Sure. But like, these are really disgusting things. And like, you know, the only reason we have to talk about this is because the whitewashing in the media of how good of a person Charlie Kirk was. He was not a nice person. He didn't deserve to die. That's horrible. Especially in that way. It's horrible. Okay, he should have died of old age like the rest of us. Hopefully. I don't know. Maybe I'll die of a heart attack. I'm fat. But when you speak in this way, when you speak in this violent, hateful, abusive way, again, you're just contributing more to the atmosphere of hatred around you. And I will say that for me, if I died of a fucking heart attack tomorrow, you'd be like, that's really sad, Papa Gut. But you did eat a lot. You understand what I'm saying? It's a terrible tragedy that happened, but it's like, we have to understand that that part of the atmosphere that existed, Charlie Kirk knew how to weaponize that and make a living out of it. So,
America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever.
I'm fine with reducing immigration if we can raise birth rates in the America. But immigration is a way to make sure we don't have an aging population. So we have a bunch of old people who can't be supported by the taxes of young people. Incentivize that through meaningful wealth redistribution programs. If you're not willing to do that, like, it's one thing to be like, I want to reduce immigration, so let's try to figure out how to increase native birth rates. To me, native is any color of people who are American. To him, it might just be white people. We do that first. We increase the birth rates of natural or American citizens first, and then say, hey, we don't need as much immigration.
Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. In Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Can we get that picture?
My understanding is that he's just, and then you can kind of see it in that clip, he's just saying, oh, Miss Rachel, if you're going to quote this part of the Bible, I will quote a different part of the Bible that you wouldn't agree with. So you quoting this part of the Bible doesn't give you the end-all, be-all to counter my arguments. You know, just to be clear, I don't know that he's necessarily saying he wants gay people to be stoned to death, but I will say he does not want gay people to have the equal rights to the rest of us, even if they are working just as hard, even if they're contributing to our system, even if they are having a positive impact on our country. He does not want them to have the same rights, or did not want them to have the same rights. That we know, just by not being okay with them having access to gay marriage. That is a stripping of a fundamental right that you should be entitled to. You're in America, you get access. If you're an American citizen, you get access to the rules in America. We keep the separation of church and state. So,
Picture up, Ryan, of that Marvel's Avenger team. Now, I don't know who the person is on the left. Is the person on the left that came and did the interview with Joe?
So that's a slur that he said that was censored. Again, we have to talk about these things. If you are uncomfortable with trans people, we can have that conversation. That's fine. But again, there's a difference between saying, I don't like, this makes me uncomfortable, or I don't understand this, or whatever you want to do. There's a difference between that and trying to be inflammatory and abusive towards people. Using a slur against a group means you hate that group. Why does your rhetoric about how you don't necessarily want trans people in the military, which I obviously disagree with, in general, but why does that rhetoric have to come with hatefulness? Explain that to me. Why? Why do you need to use a slur for that? Because you don't just want things to be fair, you want things to be hateful because you profited off of that. And I hate to be that guy, but this is why the majority of the people supporting Charlie Kirk, you could tell it's performative. The words are there. This is terrible, but the energy isn't. Because you guys didn't follow Charlie Kirk because he had amazing things to say. I mean, in this video alone, how many different disgusting things did we hear him say? Abusive things. You just liked how much he hated people. And so you're going to move on to the next person that hates people because that's what you're looking for. You didn't like Kirk because you thought he was a really good representation of a debater or any of that. Most of the people, they just liked him because he was hateful, or you didn't know who he was and you were told by the media that he was a really nice guy, and then you started to see it, and then you lowered the temperature because you're like, yeah, that is pretty gross to call black people blacks. And that's why, like, we're even Donald Trump couldn't keep his energy up. What was he asked about Charlie Kirk, and now he's dealing with it, and he started talking about his $200 million ballroom. You know,
The TikTok, your government is being run by freaks. It's like,
I agree with that.
Immediately, I have like a flashback to a country.
But he's referring to trans people as freaks, which is disgusting. I think Donald Trump is, quite a freak, but I guess that's divisive language. But again, I'm not a big fan of violating due process and destroying our own economy to own the libs. So, Mike Pence for president, though. He's a real American hero.
Where weren't able to do Bud Light commercials. What?
I'll get to him using a slur for trans people.
What does being trans even mean? Is that even a real thing?
Yeah, sure. It means that you feel like you were born in the wrong body.
It means you need therapy.
Absolutely. So?
We must ban trans-affirming care the entire country.
Trans-affirming care is therapy for trans people. So what he just said is they need therapy, also get rid of their therapy. Again, it's okay to be ignorant to these things. I'm going to say this almost every single time we talk about trans people, especially from a religious person. If you are religious, you're not allowed to think that trans people are crazy. Okay? Just to be absolutely clear, one group of people thinks that they were born in the wrong body, which I can appreciate and I can respect. The other group of people thinks that God forcefully impregnated a woman with basically himself, so that when he was 30, he could be killed for all of our sins, and so we can all engage in rituals of metaphorical cannibalization of his body and blood to purge our sins away. That sounds fucking crazy if you didn't grow up religious. And I appreciate the ritual, and I appreciate God dying for our sins. But the fact that that emotionally feels so good to say, and it's comforting, logically is fucking insane. And so you're not allowed to say that and this is only one little aspect of the entire religion. You're not allowed to say, well, I believe in God, that's not crazy, but I think trans people are. That's fucking ridiculous. Trans people are more logical than any religious anything. If we really want to get into it, you can estimate what kind of a God or religious structure a society has based on the needs of that society. This idea, again, logically, that God created us, we most likely created God based on the conditions we needed. We were massive populations of people, so we needed a God that had rules. Whereas if we were a smaller society of only 100 people, our God wouldn't need rules. They wouldn't need to have as many rules because we were all small. We knew who each other were. We knew everybody, right? If you had a society that relied on trade with other people, you might have a god of trade. It might be a polytheistic religion. There's so many different things, But again, like, it's disgusting to just discount. It's disgusting to say trans people need therapy. What he's saying is that he thinks that they're all just crazy and invalid, and then say we need to take away from their therapy. You can sit here and say, I don't think that young people should get that you shouldn't get some kind of hormones. I think that that's okay to say. I think that's fair, and I think there's a conversation to have. But saying that they don't even deserve therapy, that's what gender affirming care is. It's therapy. Most of it is therapy. It's a mental health focus to help people figure out their shit. And frankly, we could all use therapy because we all have different issues. We all have our own issues. We could all benefit from some kind of therapy or even gender affirming care. When I'm fucking 40, I'm going on test. All right, and I need a pillow between my legs when I sleep because I crush my balls. Tell me that's not caring for my gender by not wanting to crush my testicles, right?
I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. On young men,
I don't think so.
The lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic. So,
no, I don't know how to parse. First of all, who gives a fuck? Second of all, I probably have higher testosterone than any conservative out there that's not on test. Okay. I literally had to go to a blood doctor at the beginning of the year. She said that like one of the reasons why my blood is so thick is because my testosterone is so high. I'm sorry. I'm a big 6'4" beefy guy. I'm sorry that I'm fat, but I'm not the neckbeard redditor you think I am. I just don't really care about the way that I look sitting in my seat, so I don't have better angles. I'm not a woman on Tinder trying to hit the right angles. I think that it's okay to be more conservative leaning. I am more conservative leaning. That's one of the things is that but the Democratic Party in America is still somewhat conservative compared to any other first world country, any other Western country. What are they advocating for? I mean, really, what do we got in the United States? Every Democrat has to come in and fix the fucking problems that a Republican administration caused, or not even caused. Let's not even say caused. But what do we have? George Bush. There was a huge housing market collapsed. He didn't necessarily cause it. There were a lot of presidents before him that led up to the issue. Very complicated. I'm not going to blame it all on Bush. Obama came in. He recovered the market. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. He recovered the market. He did get Obamacare, which was an overall good thing. It stopped people from being denied their access to healthcare or denial of healthcare based on pre-existing conditions, which was good, but it needs to be pushed further because healthcare companies and even hospitals are, they overcharge. There needs to be more done. Okay, Trump comes in. Very irresponsible tax cuts his first time around that we never would have been able to pay for. No economist said we could have. If COVID didn't happen, we would have still saw issues. He inflated so much money into the market that's one of the reasons why there was rising inflation in Joe Biden's America, right? But then, COVID happened. Things hit the fan. We elected a Democrat to fix it. Again, Democrats get elected to fix the problems. When things are finally in a better spot, we go, no, we need a Republican now to give us all these things, and we end up fucking the market. So,
men.
The point I just fucking rambled. Point I'm trying to make is that this current Republican Party is not good. And I think that it would be more okay to be more conservative if the Conservative Party was better. In an age of just jobs being displaced by technology, losing jobs to technology, wages being driven down, we're closing down. There's a reduction of people in grocery stores at checkout lines because of self-checkout. That's one little way. There's factories being fully automated. That's another way. They're paying. There's a justification to pay truck drivers less money because they have GPSs now. You think that's silly? That's a real thing. We're seeing a squeeze out. A conservative would reach that solution, or excuse me, they would reach that problem. A real conservative, a smart conservative, a non-MAGA conservative would say, "This is a problem. We need to figure this out. How do we do that? Conservatives are not anti-tax, by the way. We need to tax Republicans. We need to tax billionaires more. And we need to redistribute that in a way that still gives people the ability to make good decisions. A UBI, I think, is great. A negative income tax, I think, is great. Here's money. You use it yourself for what you think is best. Somebody that's more democratic might say we need to take that and invest in, you do the same thing tax people, but invest it in universal child care and free college and this and that. Right? Fundamentally, what's a conservative? Somebody who's maybe just a little bit more independently inclined. A person should be given something and have the ability to do what they think is best, give them some agency. Maybe somebody that's more progressive would say, let's do something for everybody that's the choice is already made, which both are valid. But right now, the Conservative Party is saying, let's cut people's, let's cut aid around the world and for people in the United States to give tax cuts to billionaires who are never going to use it just so that they can say, hey, I have more money now. Hooray. And then they can, while they invite illegal immigration and then, underpay you by hiring them instead. So.
The lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got
Yeah, we saw this one already. We don't need to rewatch it. It's a hell of a quote.
Break-ins. Why is it did not that the baby would be delivered? When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous. There was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm saying I'm asking
that is what he's signaling.
The question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad. It was evil. But what happened?
He doesn't think it's evil because the signal of what he's saying is we should maybe go back to that time.
Something changed.
I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration.
We couldn't end it off without protecting a pedophile, could we? So I need to do that little sidebar about how bad of a person Charlie Kirk was, so that we could have this conversation more productively moving forward.
Are the enemy of the left. Before
we have to rewind a little bit.
He has to say about it, make a joke and change it into was. That's why these people are the enemy of the left before being the enemy of the right.
So far, this clip that you showed, it really isn't that provocative.
They are the reason so many centrists are turning right-wing, and they are the reason why so many moderate lefties are turning centrist.
Maybe.
Prove me wrong. Now, of course, he made more videos about it. Let's have a look. Is he being at least basically decent? I'm not asking for him to like Charlie.
Now we might actually get to a part where we get some meaningful criticisms.
Kirk, that would be a lie, clearly. So I appreciate on it.
I mean, it's been like an hour since we watched a lot of that other thing. So, but most of the clips he showed so far really weren't particularly tough. Well, the first one or two were pretty terrible.
But what is he saying? Is he being decent? Decent and destiny are two D's you will never see together anywhere. He says, don't apologize for Charlie Kirk's death. You gotta be joking.
I mean, it's a provocative title. I don't think that you necessarily have to... let's just see what he has to say. Well, the communication to me, based on what he's saying, is, hey guys, it's not the left's fault for Charlie Kirk's death. I'm assuming that's what he's referring to. He could be more respectful in his title and presentation, but that's what I'm getting out of that right off the bat.
His body was still warm and his wife is still grieving, and this is what he does. And by the way, he was mocking his wife as well, as she was like kneeling in front of the...
Listen, I saw some of the things of his wife. To be honest with you, it seems like Candace Owen had a nice, reasonable, meaningful, real interaction, positive interaction. I part of what her response, part of his wife's response, it just came off as performative to me. I would never mock it, but truthfully, there seemed to be something a little... I don't know. Maybe she was just trying to hold it together, but it seems like she was fake crying. I don't know. I don't know. I feel bad for his kids more than anything else. But you know.
Casket crying, and he was mocking her. This guy is...
I wish you would show that to us, honestly. I wish he would show us that. Maybe I could find it on Twitter. I don't think we're going to get it from this guy. He didn't add the mocking. I don't see it in here. So let's see. This is apparently in this is in the conversation that was Piers Morgan. Okay, thank you, August, for finding this.
Of Charlie Kirk, when she posts an image of her...
Sorry.
Campaign for everyone to dial down the temperature. Why do you think that mocking the grieving widow... Donald shout at once, please.
If Donald Trump would have come out and said, hey, we should all be less violent,
Destiny,
I have no problem saying
I have one question for you,
Why
Destiny.
can't conservatives do that? Why can't conservatives do that?
Destiny, I have a question for you. Why do you think, in your campaign for everyone to dial down the temperature, why do you think that mocking the grieving widow of Charlie Kirk, when she posts an image of her at the coffin side, why do you think that constitutes turning down the temperature?
Yeah, he says she tagged it. I guess this is the mocking.
You can't turn down the temperature on your own. The president of the United States is not able...
You're mocking his widow. You're mocking his widow.
About? We've had multiple...
So I think that the point of what Destiny is saying here, and I think it is uncouth. That's the right word, right? The idea is like, hey, this is her saying, I'll read what she has to say. The world is evil, but our Savior, our Lord, our God, He is so good. I will never have the words ever. The sound of this widow weeping echoes through this world like a battle cry. I have no idea what any of this means, but baby, I know you do, and so does our Lord. They have no idea what they just ignited within his wife. If they thought my husband's mission was big now, you have no idea. You, all of you, will never ever forget my husband. At Charlie Kirk, I'll make sure of it. So, like, the idea is that, is there really necessary to tag him in there unless you're trying to do some kind of promotional piece? You know, tagging. You could have just said, my husband, Charlie Kirk. That's the worst interpretation. Maybe she was just, whatever. Who gives a fuck, frankly. I don't think that, this is obviously is a level of mocking.
President of the United
You
States is
inflame the
not
temperature.
able
You're
to-
mocking
No,
his
it's already
widow.
inflamed.
You're
What are you
mocking his
talking
widow.
about? We've had multiple political assassinations over the past year. What do you mean it's turning up the temperature?
Why did you
to
mock his
something
widow?
Online
I mean, that is true. There was 2 Democrats that were murdered, and Trump didn't give a fuck about that. So
Why did you mock his widow?
Because she's being used as a political weapon right now
Wow.
for conservatives to continue. What do you mean, wow? She's literally doing
Her husband just got
recruitment
murdered.
on email. Yeah, and she's using it to drive up recruitment for
And
a
you
political
can't even
movement.
condemn the murder. You won't
The
condemn
president
it.
can't even tell his side
You're
to
so
turn the temperature
deranged
down.
about Trump
You are,
that you cannot condemn the
unhinged.
murder
It is such
because
a
you're
joke,
waiting
and
for
you guys
Donald
sit here
Trump
and
to say
make money
something.
off of it. It's
All right, let me bring
crazy
in
to
Jack.
me that
Let me bring in.
I mean, I find it's very strange that he's saying you can't even condemn the murder, and Destiny came and say like, I do condemn the murder. So yeah, kind of an it doesn't exactly help his case. But yeah, she absolutely is being used to drive up recruitment and to keep this like message of divisiveness going. Again, Donald Trump should have been the one to lower the temperature, and he refused to do it. I agree with that.
Vile. This guy is
she can grieve as much as she wants, but the whole you have no idea what your leash is inflammatory. I don't really care that Charlie Kirk's wife is saying inflammatory shit like you have no idea what you just unleashed. I don't really care how she grieves. She has every right to say or express herself as angrily as she wants. I'm not going to hold her. She's in some kind of an emotionally distressed area. So for that, I don't care that she's being divisive. I mean, like, wouldn't you too? I would be if my wife was murdered. That's terrible. The problem is that Donald Trump's not lowering the temperature by saying this was horrible, it was disgusting, it's time for us to come together and like lower the temperature of things. Every other president, regardless of the side that they're on, would have lowered the temperature. George Bush would have lowered the temperature. Obama, Biden, okay. Trump refused to do so. He's raising the temperature on it. So
anything and everything he accuses the opposite side to be. So whenever this guy sees someone vile on the other side, which of course exists, vile people exist everywhere. There are vile people in my religion, Christianity. That doesn't make Christianity wrong. It just makes the people who are within Christianity that happen to be vile, vile. And this is what people like him are doing. They take the full group and they apply the worst rhetoric from a single bad apple onto the entire group, and then they say their call to actions for violence.
But there's a problem here. First of all, I don't think Destiny's a good person, and I think he is an opportunist that just wants to feel justified in saying nasty, disgusting shit. I agree with that. The problem that you're going to face when you play this game where he's just isolating the worst of the worst and making it seem like that's all Republicans. Donald Trump was mocking the assault of Nancy Pelosi's husband. He doesn't seem to care about the 2 Democrats that were assassinated this year at all. But he'll raise the temperature when it comes to Charlie Kirk. He won't say, guys, we need to calm down. It's a time for us to come together. If anything, he actually says the opposite. He says he doesn't care about bringing us together. We are beyond this game we're playing where it's like, well, he's just taking in a select few. There's a bunch of fucking idiots on Twitter. Destiny's probably the worst of them that are mocking Charlie Kirk's death or were mocking Charlie Kirk's death. That's disgusting. But the literal president of the United States of America, the most powerful and influential man in the world, is constantly spewing divisive, disgusting rhetoric. Mocking a man getting beaten with a hammer? What do you want me to tell you? So we're not at that point anymore. You can't say it's a fringe group of people on the right when Donald Trump was the one who incited January 6th. Mike Pence is not running with him anymore because Mike Pence refused to go along with the voting against the will of people by taking faulty electors, the votes, of faulty electors. Donald Trump's own people were chanting, "Kill Mike Pence." We're beyond, like, Trump certainly didn't start political divisiveness, but he is capitalizing on it in a way that is so insane. We're so beyond this, like, it's fringe groups on the right. It's not. It is the group. It is MAGA. And you guys need to stop doing this game where you're fence sitting on something. You're comparing Destiny to Donald Trump. Destiny's a fucking YouTuber. Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America. Here's him making fun of Nancy Pelosi's husband for getting beaten with a hammer.
We'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know? And she's against building a wall at our border, even though she has a wall around her house. which obviously didn't do a very good job.
Right, from keeping the assailant from beating her husband with a hammer. People would say, like, well, this wasn't murder. Charlie Kirk was murdered. This was before Charlie Kirk's murder. Explain to me how mocking the assault of somebody, even somebody you think is bad, Nancy Pelosi's a fucking piece of dog shit. Explain to me how that doesn't contribute to an escalation of political violence. Okay. This is our President of the United States. This is our President of the United States, guys. So, I think that's something very important to keep in mind.
The New York...
And here, we might as well throw in Charlie Kirk mocking, him being beaten as well.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com. I'm looking at the New York Times. I'm looking at all these places, and there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers?
All right, so just to be clear, this is pushing the idea that Paul Pelosi was actually dating this guy and it was a lover's quarrel, which is not true.
Breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home. Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet
it's talking about bailing out the guy who beat Nancy Pelosi's husband.
His bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I wonder what his bail is. They're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right. But
hard to tell that you think that way.
Why is it that in Chicago you're able to commit murder and be out the next day? Why is it that you're able to trespass, second-degree murder, arson, threat of public official, cashless bail? This happens all over San Francisco, but if you go after the Pelosi's, oh, you're let out immediately.
I'm sure there's a conversation to have about Chicago. Again, we're mocking and we're pushing a conspiracy theory about Nancy Pelosi's husband. That it was actually his gay lover. And that he let him in, and he was beaten with a hammer over a lover's quarrel. This is a justification. This is a mocking of a political attack. You can say, you can have a productive conversation if you want, of like, hey, how come they don't go harder about crime in Chicago? That's fine to have that conversation, but very clearly the primary point of this conversation is to mock the death, or excuse me, not the death, to mock the assault of a political, say, opponent. That's literally all it is. So
this is the difference. This is an important aspect that needs to be underlined. Do not take bad apples and apply them to everyone.
Okay. It's a bad point.
Take the bad apples and hold them accountable.
Donald Trump is like the bad apple, though.
He says, don't apologize for Charlie Kirk's death. Excuse me, what? First of all, who is asking to apologize? Look at the mental manipulation.
I find it interesting that just before he said that the way that Destiny talks, which I kind of agree with to some degree, is pushing people towards the right more. Because of the rhetoric that he's spewing, and you're putting a lot on him for that, which is fair. I think it's fair. But then you're just really you have quite a heavy aversion against holding Trump accountable for his incitement and increasing of political violence and increasing of the temperature. You're comparing Destiny to Donald Trump in this video. And it's just insane.
There. No one is asking someone who didn't do anything to apologize. However, if there is someone like you who has been constantly pushing for violence onto people you disagree with, yes, you should apologize, but you won't because you wanted it.
He showed a couple of clips that seemed rather old. They're still disgusting. But to say constantly, I don't think is a fair assessment here. The first two clips he showed were an example of that. I agree, but they were also very old clips. And to say that somehow, again, it's like there's this high responsibility on Destiny, the edgy little streamer lord, and none on to Donald Trump at all. It's like Destiny's the president of the fucking United States, apparently. Let's rewatch these clips again real quick.
I'm ready for the fucking the great cleansing, dude.
Yeah, this is obviously disgusting.
The cleansing.
I'll play them in increased speed so we can watch them.
When we genocide conservatives in this country.
Yeah, this is horrible.
Maybe. I gotta go back to Nebraska and grab it.
You genuinely do hate conservatives, don't you?
Very much so. I
just remember this is like his old banner for like, I don't know, 3-4 years ago.
Moved full on to like the political violence level, or the real violence level when it comes to conservative people. Yeah, I think they need to be like excised from my fucking country. I think they're demonstrably fucking evil people by any moral system that most people would use.
Yeah, you instead are a saint.
And then I just hate them because they tend to destroy the outcomes related to this country, which is what I'm concerned with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a topic I'm not yet sort of ready to touch.
No. Conservatives have been disgusting for years, which is why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies and gets shot or whatever the fuck, okay? Because they had no problem making fun of Paul Pelosi. The entire world would be better off.
This clip really isn't that bad, to be honest with you.
If these people were permanently removed from these platforms. Like, there is no downside and only upside to see people like Candace Owens, Tucker.
I mean, I don't agree with that censoring of free speech, but then again, we're trying to go after the people who are expressing themselves about Charlie Kirk now. Conservatives are usually the bastions or claim to be bastions of free speech, but it's very clear that regardless of what side you're on, it's more about trying to censor the language that you want to censor, which is something Destiny's saying here. But it's clear that the conservatives are willing to do it as well. Right?
Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool, never be allowed to publicly broadcast their opinions ever again. It's exclusively bad stuff that happens. Conservatives have been
again, the conservative position seems to be just hating gay and trans people and having very little policy position. So that's unfortunate. So those clips are bad. This clip is really not that bad. The joke he made about that, uncouth, but like him calling Charlie Kirk a Satan spawn before his death, I mean, he's not wrong. We just went through an entire thing. And so it's like, you know,
he said it is state you disagree with.
But I mean, like, do you think that that's more of an incitement of violence than Trump, who literally effectively orchestrated January 6th? Destiny's a disappointment. Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. I don't understand. I don't understand, man. It's fucking crazy.
Yes, you should apologize, but you won't because you wanted this. He said it. He stated it. He said this is what he wanted. This is the America he wants to live in. An America where people cannot freely express their ideas without the fear of being gunned down like animals. This is the America he wants, which is why he's now doubling down and saying, don't apologize. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, no, I think that he's saying that the left shouldn't apologize for this because the right has been the biggest stoker of the flames of violence since Trump, right? Especially this election, which I agree with. Again, Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump was elected because a lot of people on the right were very frustrated with getting battered by, like, socially, by left perspectives, especially under COVID, and even the riots, which got out of control. They were never sanctioned by any Democrats, the riots, you know, but it was still frustrating. And so they elected Donald Trump, who was a mixture of a politician but also an entertainer, which is what the media is now. They're entertainment media. They sensationalize everything. We can't just sit proportionate. And things really exploded. He was able to take advantage of the system, and he is the worst representation of it. But it didn't start with conservatives necessarily, right? I understand that, but Donald Trump is like a unique threat. So, and he's the president, bro. Like, what the fuck? And he's the one who's riling things up worse than anybody else.
Tell me my analysis is incorrect.
I would say that it is, because again, I believe, from what I understand, I mean, you didn't watch the whole thing, clearly. Neither did I. It sounds more like he's saying people on the left don't apologize for this because it's the right now. It is the right wing's fault. They are the party of violence, especially compared to Democrats.
This sounds like a bad thing to say. This sounds like a bad thing to say, and people don't like to think of it this way, but
it is a bad thing to say.
The reality is there are like 4 different worlds that we can live in, and it relates to like this concept of like a prisoner's dilemma. In the prisoner's dilemma, I think a lot of people talk about this. I don't know how many people are aware of how that actually works, but for prisoner's dilemma, the issue with it is a...
Who speaks faster, XQC or Destiny?
XQC.
Enunciation. If you want, I can give you some diction lessons, Destiny. So, after all, a professional language teacher, you need to learn to enunciate.
Paradoxical setup, kind of, where there is a positive outcome for 2 different players. However, both players basically become incentivized using logic to take the worst outcome, basically, for collectively. So you have 2 different people who are caught, and the 2 people who are caught are being interrogated by the police. And then the question is do you cooperate with the police and rat out your friend, or do you not cooperate with the police, I shouldn't be using cooperate links? Or do you not work with the police and then you cooperate with your friend? That's supposed to be phrased, right? Okay, we'll say prisoner 1 cooperates.
Okay, I don't care about this. Also because, and then people tell me I use word salads.
There is a worse world than this one here. We're just pretending that it is. The violence against each other. Civility.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where we kind of want to be,
Yes.
all right? We want to be...
Oh, well, you don't. We do. You want violence on the streets. So no, you don't want civility. Don't put we. You and I are not the same.
Here, where things are civil, all right? Meaning we're not killing each other.
Right.
Or having a bad time enacting violence against each other. This would be like ideal. This is a good world, okay?
Yeah.
Right now, at best, we're in this world, okay?
Which you created.
Nobody wants to say this, but the problem is that this here is not the worst world. We're just pretending that it is, okay?
Of course. So
the reason why it doesn't...
I understand what he's saying. Like, we're violent now, but we're not quite at the worst world. Our democracy hasn't quite fallen or been shattered, so okay.
Makes sense for Democrats to disavow over and over and over again when Republicans won't do it is because there is a worse world for this, and the worst world is...
I would like to underline, not to interrupt him too much, but I would like to underline. Did you see what he's doing? No. Democrats are disavowing, so the whole group are saying violence bad, but Republicans are not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you not see the wave of Democrats and liberals that have been specifically laughing and giggling for Charlie Kirk's death? And I found some TikTokers who specifically asked, as a call to action, now go and do Charlie's children.
This is going to be the problem with this video, through and through. This is the best representation right here. When it comes to, there are people on the left and the right that are mock and do calls to violence and action. Absolutely. But the reality is, whether you want to acknowledge this or not, is the Democratic leadership do not do that. But Trump's conservative leadership does. He mocks the assault of Paul Pelosi. He doesn't give a fuck about the 2 Democrats that are assassinated. He's not lowering the temperature, saying he doesn't care about civility. He's the reason why January 6th happened. He didn't care that people were chanting "kill Mike Pence," his own vice president, because he was so angry with Mike Pence for not helping him steal the country. And if you can't acknowledge this and instead you want to play this fence-sitting game, all you're doing is proving that you're the reason why Destiny always stays relevant. Because as much of a as much of a immoral fuck he is, you can't come to grasp with reality. And so he might be morally fractured, but this entire video so far is you comparing Destiny, the edgy lefty streamer, to Donald Trump, the president of the United fucking States. It's just like I don't know if we're just living in 2 different worlds. What you're doing is fence-sitting centrism. The parties are not equal right now. MAGA specifically is a plague to our democracy. But you can't come to terms. You're so online slop-brained that Destiny somehow poses a greater threat to the world than Donald Trump, the fucking president. Destiny's not good, but you can't even acknowledge one time that the Republican leadership calls for violence where the Democratic leadership just doesn't. I don't care about videos on TikTok that you found that are bad. What about Donald Trump? The guy who's capitalizing on Charlie Kirk's murder and assassination to distract from him being best friends with a pedophile. Okay. All right.
And wife.
Okay.
Is he out of his mind?
All right.
The reality is, because I'm the one who tells that this is a political manipulator. I tell it how it is.
You don't.
Reality is that there are some people that condemn violence, usually the overwhelming majority, and then there are people who want violence.
What about Donald Trump? What do you think about him?
However, what happened in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination and the aftermath, you are probably a liberal and you're watching this and you'd say, no, I don't want that. I don't want violence. I'm against violence. I didn't like Charlie Kirk, but I'm against violence. Great. I never said all liberals. He's the one who speaks in full groups. I don't.
Yeah, because Donald Trump, he calls to violence, and he's the leader of America and the Conservative Party.
I'm saying there is a certain number of people that are specifically celebrating, laughing, giggling, and that is causing a strong reaction on the right. Now, are there some people on the right that are pushing it too far? Yes.
Who? Is it Donald Trump, perhaps?
If someone on the right says, now we need to retaliate off Destiny, it's wrong. And I will...
What the fuck does Destiny have to do with any of this? If they want to retaliate to Destiny, I'll say that. Who the fuck cares about Destiny? Who cares about the retaliation of Destiny? Why are you so fucking internet brain? The President of the United States is not trying to lower the temperature after this happened. He's saying he doesn't care about civility. He doesn't give a fuck about civility. He mocked the attack of Nancy Pelosi's husband with a fucking hammer that put him in the hospital. You don't think that maybe is a normalization of violence? Oh, well, that's not a murder. It's a normalization of violence before this happened. Donald Trump orchestrated January 6th. His own people were chanting, "Kill Mike Pence," his vice president. Because the vice president wouldn't play game with Trump. None of his cabinet has run with him in his second term, because he's constantly inciting violence. And you're sitting here talking about Destiny. Oh, well, he's trying to make it seem like all Republicans are a problem. The President of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party, the most powerful man in the world, the most influential man in the world, is one of the biggest constantly communicates some of the biggest calls to violence and divisiveness. And you're sitting here playing internet slot brain, talking about Destiny, who's not a good person. Oh, yeah. Well, who's worse? Is it fucking Destiny, the edgy little left streamer again, or is it fucking Donald Trump, the lead? I feel frustrated. This is frustrating. This is very frustrating. This is frustrating. I'm frustrated. I'm so frustrated. I'm frustrated. I don't like Destiny. I don't. I think he's a bad person. Morally, I don't think he really believes in a lot of things he says. But like this weird game you're playing, it's just so fucking stupid. It's so goddamn frustrating. It's slop. It's looking at the assassination of Charlie Kirk through an online slop lens, dude. It's just so fucking frustrating. It's just fucking insane. It's like people are afraid to say like, hey, Donald Trump might not be great. The Republican Party's fine, but Donald Trump's like a really bad person. We're afraid to say that. People are such fucking cowards.
Call it out. That's not the way to do it. But let's not pretend that the same level of laughing and giggling happened when the Democratic senators were offed. I didn't see these thousands and thousands of conservatives.
Nobody gave a fuck when that happened because Donald Trump wouldn't even honor the killing of those two Democratic senators. It's just very frustrating that the guy who pardoned the treasonous January Sixers is sitting. Like, I don't understand. Is somehow like not responsible for the elevation of violence in our country. I don't get it. Okay. All right.
Particularly kids going around saying, we got this person in the neck, we got this person in the neck. I didn't see that. And if there were some, which is why it is absolutely abhorrent that now is going to pretend as if all liberals want no violence, but all Republicans never say that.
Donald Trump is fine with violence.
You're out of your mind. This is why centrists turn right.
Okay.
I'll call it genocide.
I mean, you're the coward centrist that's apparently turning right. I'm not trying to be fucking rude, but again, like there's a lack of acknowledgement. Destiny apparently is the most powerful man in the world. Donald Trump has no impact. The guy who fucking J60 has no impact on the world. But Destiny, he's he's fucking huge. He's so fucking powerful and so impressionable. It's insane. Or he pushes so much, and he's more influential rather.
I mean, you can put whatever you want here: genocide, absolute violence, one-sided firing squad, whatever, execution.
Right.
There is a worse
wrong.
world than this one here.
We all know that.
And that worse world is one side enacting violence.
Of course.
And the problem is that the Republican rhetoric is pushing us in that direction, where the Republicans want to push us here, right? Where it's a Dem utter loss. And they do that by already trying to say that we are here, right? You've heard the Republicans say over and over again, it's all left-wing violence, it's all left-wing violence, it's all left-wing violence. And they do that as a call to their own side that they need to respond with violence.
And the way to prove them wrong, if that's what you want to do, is to condemn the shooting of the children, the Christian children, by the way, that were killed by someone who clearly wasn't a Republican. I think it's obvious. And then also this Charlie Kirk's assassination. You do not have the moral ground if you laugh. It's one of the two. You got to choose. I would have respected Democrats if they had said, and I do respect those Democrats that have been condemning this, but a lot of you guys are laughing about it, so you lose the moral ground. Be angry at those people on your side that are laughing about this. You included.
Sure, I am. I'm angry at the people who are laughing about Charlie Kirk's assassination. It's terrible. I'm also angry at the people who are pretending that Charlie Kirk was a good person in life, and he wasn't. I'm sorry. The response shouldn't be to mock his death. But, you know, in the same way where I can be understanding of Charlie Kirk's wife having a divisive response. Her husband was murdered. Of course, she's going to be riled up and angry and upset, and she's going to call for more violence, or to some degree, you don't know what you've started. I get that. That's a totally human thing. When you have a group of black people who Charlie Kirk constantly talks about how they're replacing America, refers to them as blacks, and talks about how they were better off in the 1940s before they were considered people, how affirmative action has never had a positive impact. Not saying, hey, maybe things need to change now, but never have a positive impact. If you're a black person who watched Charlie Kirk sit there and say that we as America shouldn't celebrate the representation of the day that slavery was finally abolished because it was one of the most disgusting practice America's ever engaged in. If you see that Charlie Kirk passed away and you made some jokes, what the why though? I'm not gonna what do you? I would get it. It's not right, but I mean, like, what do you want me to tell you? I'm a white guy. His words had no negative impact on me outside of the ones that obviously spoke negatively of gay and trans people, and I have gay and trans like family and friends. But like, I'm not really concerned about a bunch of like fucking nobodies on the left or anybody on Twitter making edgy jokes about people being killed. I'm more interested in what the president of the United States has to say, and we have a president who condones political violence against like the left. He was okay with January 6th. That's a huge deal. We have to not forget that. This isn't like, oh, it's a little event. His own followers wanted Mike Pence to die because Mike Pence wouldn't go along. I guess this is insane. Mike Pence wouldn't go along with Trump's words. It's insane. It's insane. And we all forgot that Donald Trump's best friends with a fucking pedophile. That just left the air. That was crazy.
You left. You said you were gonna make fun of the firefighter. You were the one who pushed the people in your audience to now go around and laugh. So you lost the moral ground. You want to regain it? Condemn the violence, but don't make a video saying don't apologize for Charlie Kirk's death.
So far, his video that you're showing us, though, isn't really that bad. If it was saying don't apologize, this is the problem. Is like Destiny's strategy is very simple. He makes videos that seem reasonable, and then he goes on Twitter and he says unreasonable shit, so you get mad at him so that he can debate you from that perspective. This is Destiny's entire strategy. Super provocative shit on Twitter. Oh my God, Destiny said a super provocative bad thing. He's a piece of shit. True. Then he makes a video saying, well, here's why I said this, and here's a more productive conversation now that I've triggered you into watching my content. Oh, that's what we're seeing right here. So he said some provocative shit on Twitter, mocking the death of Charlie Kirk. And now he makes a video that comes off reasonable. That's literally, we get it. But like the video itself really isn't that bad. The title really isn't that bad. And you're just kind of like engaging in this strategy that Destiny engaged. Like, it's like, oh, good job falling for it. I don't know. What do I tell you?
The reason why I'm not sympathetic to people saying we need to turn down the temperature, well, look, just because the other side isn't doing it doesn't mean we can't. No, you.
I agree with that. Why lose your humanity? I'm not looking for an opportunity to start, justifying the violence against any group of people. People on the left, people on the right, religious people, non-religious people, gay people, trans people, none of that. So, like, if I see people on the right, like Donald Trump, condoning violence, I'm not going to be like, well, I guess it's my opportunity to lose my moral value. No, that's weak. I don't, I think Destiny's somebody who enjoys making jokes and mocking people, and I think that there's a level of humanity there that is missing. I'm not saying he's a sociopath or some kind of, diagnosis, but I do think that he's edgy and desensitized. I don't like that message. But again, I'm not going to sit here and single out people on the left doing it and not condemn people on the right, like this guy's doing.
We're not in the worst world right now. This world, right, which is this part of the prisoner's dilemma box, this world is preferable right here to this world.
You see what he's doing? Once again, mental manipulation. It's
not really manipulation. He's just making a very basic point about how this is the world we're in, violence, and the Republicans want to make it seem like, I believe he's saying Republicans want to cause violence against the left, which seems to be the case since Donald Trump is condoning it. So
it's clear as day. He's giving you an answer that is correct. Yes,
okay.
The world with violence is preferable to the world with genocide. That is that's correct, but it's unrelated. That's what he does. So he says something, and you listen to it, and you're like,
well, he's describing the Republican strategy, the Donald Trump strategy right now of calling to violence against Democrats and trying to make them seem like less than.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But it has nothing to do with, that's why we shouldn't call for stopping violence or lowering temperature. Do you see how unrelated...
How do I feel about the flag being half-mast for Charlie Kirk? Yeah, it's disgusting. Charlie Kirk doesn't deserve the honor of putting the flag at half-mast. It's just unnecessary. He died. It's sad. It's a horrible thing that happened. We need to condemn it, and we need to and lower the temperature, but he was not a particularly good person. He's spewed a lot of hatred, which we've showed the first half an hour of it in here. Bad person. You know what I mean? He was a bad person. He was capitalizing on a very fractured America.
The two things are, and he's doing it on purpose. He's saying what he wants to say, which is the message, don't tone down the violence, that's what he's saying. And then, because people who are decent, left or right...
He's not saying don't tone down the violence. He's saying that we should get in the mud like conservatives do. I disagree with him. But, yeah.
Right or center are going to be like, well, no, we should tone down the violence.
Then why isn't Donald Trump calling to tone down the violence? What? I watched Donald Trump on Fox talk about how he doesn't care about unity. Here we go. This is a great clip.
How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less.
Okay, great stuff. Couldn't care less. I love it. Here's a longer aspect of it.
It's going to get me in trouble, but
Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime.
No, that's not the case. I don't know how else to tell you that. We're talking about people who falsely believe the election was stolen, people who don't think that vaccines work, people who don't think that we should give money to poor, disaffected people, like starving children around the world that need medical aid. They don't care about that. They vote against it to give more money to billionaires. They vote against their best interest by voting for Donald Trump. It's the surging tariffs that are going to do absolutely nothing to position us to be better in the world at all. They're angry because they've been directed to be angry as they vote to get rid of the Department of Education to have lesser outcomes for school. It's not because they want to see less crime. I'm sorry. Maybe they think that, but they're being manipulated by the guy who orchestrated January 6th. I mean, what else? What other... They're chanting, kill Mike Pence. What are you talking about? There were Nazis marching to keep statues of historical racists. What?
They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming.
Trump doesn't care about the border. He knocked down a really good border bill that would have came out under Biden that conservatives pushed. And he said, don't do it because he has so much control over the Republican Party.
And we don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy, although they want men and women sports.
So I'm talking about we just injected trans issues into the what? First of all, radicals on the left are fucking 15-year-olds on TikTok crying. Number two, the most radical left-leaning position is universal health care that works in every other Western country. People on the radical left aren't anywhere close to people on the radical right. And it's so fucking weird too, because when we sit down and look at this, what do people on the right? The people on the right, they have guns and they call Democrats gay all the time. So who's more positioned to be more violent? Just generally speaking, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not saying the BLM was okay, but like, what the fuck? You know, it's just so interesting. Again, Charlie Kirk was friends with, who's that fucking freak? Jesus Christ. Alex Jones, who mocked the deaths of children. There's nobody like that on the left that is embraced by Charlie Kirk, which my understanding was the biggest right-wing podcast. This is a both sides problem, but one of the sides is specifically worse.
They want transgender for everyone. They want open borders.
What the fuck is he talking about? Transgender for everyone? What does that mean? Open borders? Trump was the one who knocked down a bill that would have helped us, would have cut down on the people taking advantage of the asylum seeking process. What? Why? Because there was an increase of border wall interactions after COVID, because the COVID was over, people could cross. Absolutely. There's an issue, but he's sensationalizing it.
The worst thing that happened to this country, because I've already solved inflation, costs are down.
Inflation's up.
Look at it.
Costs are up. I just wanted to show more of this, to show you that like this isn't him trying to lower the temperature. He's just trying to demonize people on the left. That's all he's doing. That's all Trump does. And here we got our buddy here who just doesn't want to acknowledge any of this. He just wants to say Destiny's a bad guy.
What are you on about? And then he's going to say, but no, because it's preferable to have this world over this one, isn't it? And then people are going to be like, yeah, I mean, sure, it is preferable. No, civility is preferable, you liar.
Or this world, right? And
his biggest example of like of radical left was that they want trans people to be in fucking girl sports. Like, wow, that's crazy. That versus January 6th.
The one-sided calls for just us. We just need to disavow. No, I'm sorry. The president of the United States, without having any idea at all who the actual shooter is, has already blamed one side.
Because there was a bullet which said, "Catch this fascist." Which is the side that calls the other fascist?
You've never seen... First of all, are you trying to say that conservatives are not against fascism? Second of all, why are you... What? I'm sorry. So, Kirk was assassinated, and there was that on... And there was other memes on it as well, like says, if you read this, you're gay. And you're like, yep, it's totally okay to be instantly like, this is the left, and this is a representation of the entire left, and like, that's it. That's what you're saying. Also, I would imagine conservatives don't like fascists. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump has called Kamala Harris and Joe Biden fascists.
American politics today is between these far-left fascists, led by Harris and her group. We have a fascist person running who's incompetent. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist. She's not actually a socialist. She's gone past that. Somebody's got to explain this woman. There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
So let's just replay what you just said.
Which said...
Has already blamed one side.
Because there was a bullet which said, "Catch this fascist." Which is the side that calls the other fascist?
Great job. And I think that is the biggest, most telling representation of what this video is for all of you out there. It is moral condemnation of somebody who deserves it, Destiny, while getting on his knees and justifying every disgusting thing Trump is doing to not lower the temperature and to incite more violence. By comparing Destiny the streamer to the president of the fucking United States of America, the most powerful and influential man ever. That's what this video is. And all it's going to do is serve to help Destiny regain his popularity, because this is such an unreasonably stupid hit piece. There are some reasonable criticisms, but they fall short when they're so one-sided. This guy is I guess he's just manipulated by something. Stupidity, I don't know. Okay.
As someone who receives that insult constantly, be real, Destiny. Be honest.
You heard it here, guys. Republicans love fascists, I guess. I don't understand.
Once again, I'm honest on my end.
I believe that. But the problem is that since you're honest on your end, it's very painfully clear that you just have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And that's an even bigger problem, is that you just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's a bigger problem that you're just ignorant. Congratulations for not being a liar, but you're incredibly fucking ignorant.
I'm not saying all Democrats do this. I'm not saying all liberals are like this. I've seen a lot in my comments that say I'm left-wing, but it's horrible. I didn't like what Charlie Kirk said, but this is unbelievable, and I strongly... Great. That's a good lefty. Differently from you. You instead demonize the entirety of the other side and then add calls to violence. This is the difference between me and him.
Well, you're such a good guy, I guess. Okay.
If you appreciate my...
That video was fucking dog shit.